All right, so you've sent us this document about office epidemics, and this section is about Harassitis.
Yes.
And this sounds like a pretty rough thing to deal with.
Yeah. It's, not good.
So this is going to be our deep dive into Condition 4 of 22 Harassitis, From Office Epidemics, The Hidden Conditions That Hinder Success, which is by Suram.
Okay.
So the author starts out
Yeah, give us the story.
by giving us a story about a guy named Vinod, and he sounds like, just from how they're describing him, kind of a nightmare.
Oh, really?
Like the worst.
Okay.
And he's interacting with, it looks like 3 different people,
Okay.
Shalini, Nitin, and Rohit. And so I guess he's maybe their manager.
Okay.
Shalini's a junior analyst, Nitin is an intern, and Rohit's like a senior guy.
Gotcha.
So kind of like, across the board.
So he's interacting with different levels of seniority.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I guess my first question is, like, what is Harassitis?
Well, like you said, it's not good. The author really uses this term to talk about workplace bullying.
Okay.
And how someone can create a really hostile work environment for other people. And it's interesting because the author actually links it to a couple of different things. They talk about insecurity.
Okay.
And also this need for control.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, how is this manifesting?
Right.
It's like,
yeah.
what's...
Is he yelling at people?
Yeah, what are the symptoms of Harassitis?
Yeah, so, and it does sound like, based on what you were saying, that Vinod is probably yelling, because one of the symptoms that they talk about is public humiliation.
Right.
They also talk about angry outbursts, which sounds pretty similar, intimidation, and then, like we were just talking about, blaming other people and just having excessive control, like needing to be in charge of everything.
Yeah.
So if you think about it with Vinod, and you were saying he's interacting with these 3 different people, like, think about how that would play out if he's the manager, and he's got this junior analyst, Shalini, and he's probably publicly humiliating her, maybe about a report,
Oh, for sure.
in front of everyone. And then you've got Nitin, who is just coming in. He's an intern.
Oh, he's terrified.
He doesn't know what to expect. This is his first, maybe, real job, and he's probably walking on eggshells constantly because who knows what Vinod's going to say to him.
Yeah, you're set up for failure right there.
Exactly.
So you're already nervous.
And then you've got Rohit, who, maybe has a little bit more experience, kind of knows the ropes, but if he's having to work in this environment where it's just tense all the time,
Yeah.
and he's watching what's happening, that's going to impact him too, right?
Absolutely.
It's exhausting.
Yeah, you don't want to deal with that. But I guess the question then becomes, why? Why is he like this?
Well, that's the thing, right? The author says that a lot of it might just be this deep-seated insecurity that he has.
Okay.
So he's projecting all that.
So it's less about their actual incompetence.
Right.
And it's more about his own stuff.
Exactly.
He's got to control everything.
Right.
Interesting.
And I mean, if you look back at that list of symptoms, the public humiliation, the outbursts, the blaming feeling, you can kind of start to see how it all ties together, right?
So it's not just that he's having a bad day. It seems like it's a pattern of behavior.
Yeah, exactly. The author even calls it out as Harassitis directly in the document.
So it's like its own thing.
Yeah.
Interesting. And so, I mean, that obviously has an impact on those people, Shalini, Nitin, and Rohit.
Oh, absolutely. And it goes beyond just like hurt feelings, right?
Right.
You're talking about, like you said, they're set up to fail. It erodes their confidence. They're afraid to do anything.
Yeah.
So then not only are they not able to grow in that role, but it really impacts the organization as a whole, too.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So it's not just like an individual thing.
It's a much bigger picture thing.
Exactly.
So, okay, so then, how bad is too bad? How do you measure the Harassitis?
Well, actually, that's something that the author gets into, this rating scale to diagnose just how severe it is.
Interesting.
Yeah.
A rating scale. Okay, so how does that work?
So the author, they give us the scale from 1 to 5.
Okay.
And 1 is like, maybe not great, but not the worst. And 5 is like super severe Harassitis.
Gotcha.
And they basically look at how often these certain behaviors are happening. So, like we were talking about, public humiliation,
Right.
or if they're always making these accusations that aren't true, or trying to micromanage everything and control everyone.
Yeah.
So basically, like, the more often that kind of stuff is going on, the higher up on the scale you are.
So the worse the Harassitis.
Yeah, exactly.
That makes sense.
And the other thing about this scale, it's not just about, like, diagnosing it. The author actually uses it to figure out how to respond.
Yep.
Because, I mean, dealing with a 2 on the scale, probably a lot different than dealing with a 5, right?
Yeah. Different levels.
Exactly. So then to actually address the Harassitis, the author gives us two different approaches or frameworks.
Yeah, I saw those action and shield.
Yeah.
What do those look like?
So action author, they say to use this for early intervention.
Okay.
So if it's like maybe not super severe yet.
Right.
Or maybe it's just starting,
Catch it early.
Exactly.
So what's the first step there?
So the author, they really emphasize this. Don't isolate yourself.
Okay.
Because it's natural. If someone's like bullying you or making you feel uncomfortable, you kind of just want to like avoid them, right?
You just want to hide.
Exactly.
So stay away from them.
But, then that's exactly what they want.
Right.
So you got to stay connected.
Okay.
Talk to your other coworkers, build up those relationships.
So there's strength in numbers.
Solidarity.
Right. And then the next thing they say is confront.
Okay.
But like politely and assertively.
Okay.
It's not like you want to start a fight or anything.
Right.
Be like, hey, when you do this, it makes me feel like this.
Yeah. Just call it out.
Exactly.
Sometimes they don't even know.
Right.
They just have no idea.
Maybe. And then if that doesn't work, they say talk, like actually report it.
Okay. So go to HR.
Yep.
Go to your manager.
Yep, whoever.
Okay.
And it might be helpful to involve other people too.
Okay.
Like if other people saw it happen or if they're going through the same thing.
Right, because then it's a pattern.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not just like a one-time thing.
Right.
And then really important, the author says to observe.
Okay.
Like actually pay attention to what your company's policies are.
Do your homework.
Yeah, like what are your rights?
Right.
And then last but not least, with action ease, they say to never retaliate.
Okay.
Like, as tempting as it is to be like, oh, yeah, well, you do this. Two wrongs don't make a right.
Exactly.
Don't stoop to that level.
Right. So that's action. Avoid, confront, talk, involve, observe, never.
Okay. Easy enough to remember.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So what about shield? When do you use that one?
So shield, this is more for like if the Harassitis is really bad.
Okay.
Or if, you've tried action and it's not working, like you need to protect yourself kind of thing.
Okay. So shield is like the more, what's the word? Serious option, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Like you said, it's more about protecting yourself, especially if the situation's really gotten out of hand. And the author's really big on this first step. Speak up.
Okay, so how is that different than an action? Because that had talk in it, right?
Right. So talk and action, that was more about having those initial conversations, maybe explaining how their behavior makes you feel. But here, with speak up, it's about setting those firm boundaries.
Oh.
Like really clear. This is not okay.
Gotcha.
No more tiptoeing around the issue.
Yeah, no more Mr. Nice Guy.
Exactly. And then, right along with that, the author says to hold documentation.
Okay, so write everything down.
Yeah.
Dates, times, witnesses, what was said, what was done.
Yep, because you might need it later.
Okay, so it's kind of like building your case if things get worse.
Exactly. Because, if it gets to the point where you have to go to HR or even like take legal action, it's your word against theirs unless you have proof, right?
It's true.
And then just like with action, involve other people.
Okay.
Talk to your coworkers, your friends, maybe even a therapist.
Right, because this stuff can really get to you.
Oh, absolutely. It's tough. And when you're dealing with that, sometimes you just need support,
Yeah.
And then once you've got that support system, the author talks about establishing boundaries. And that might sound similar to speak up, but this is more about like, what are those boundaries specifically? And, what happens if the person crosses those lines?
So it's less about feeling it out and more about drawing a line in the sand.
Exactly. And that kind of leads into the last two steps, which really go together.
Okay.
Look for support and demand action and, look for support. We kind of already talked about that a little bit, but
That's important.
It's important enough to mention twice. It's not just about like your coworkers either. It's your friends, your family, maybe even a therapist if you need someone to talk to. You got to take care of yourself.
Absolutely, because this stuff can really mess with your head.
Totally. But it's not just about taking care of yourself. It's also about like actually doing something about the situation, which is where that demand action comes in.
Okay, so what does that look like?
It's about advocating for yourself and pushing for a resolution.
Yeah.
The author makes it clear that this isn't something you just have to accept.
Right.
You deserve to feel safe and respected at work, just like everyone else.
Yeah, nobody deserves to deal with this Harassitis stuff.
Exactly. And, obviously, every situation is different.
Right.
And we can't give legal advice or anything.
Of course.
But hopefully, after this deep dive, you've got a better understanding of, what it is, what to look out for, and what you can do about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Knowledge is power, right?
Exactly. And even though, like, we obviously can't cover every single situation and all the details,
Right.
it's a good starting point.
Totally.
Yeah,
Because, like you said, everybody deserves to feel safe at work.
absolutely.
So if you're dealing with something similar, remember action, remember shield, and definitely reach out to somebody because you are not alone.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So that's our deep dive into Harassitis.